Hello friends, welcome to Technique. This is Nirmal here, and in this video we're going to do a comparison of two popular smartphones with really great hardware. We have the newly launched Poco X2 with us, and we're going to compare it with the popular device in the sub 15k price segment, the Redmi Note 8 Pro. So these two devices have really great hardware, and they come with a really good camera setup as well, great batteries, good powerful processors. So in this video we'll run down through all the aspects of these two devices to decide which one should you buy in case you are buying a smartphone below the 20k price segment. So let's get started. First step, let's have a look at the design and build quality. Now looking at the front panel design, you can see that the major difference is in terms of the punch hole camera. So we have a punch hole camera on the Poco X2, while we have a notch on the Redmi Note 8 Pro. While this doesn't make a major difference in terms of the overall experience, punch hole might be slightly newer technology when compared to the notch experience, but since it's a dual camera setup, this unit takes up a lot of space when compared to the notch on the Redmi Note 8 Pro. Now looking at the back panel, so this is where you can see a difference comes in. So we have glass finishing on both the devices. So if you look at the design aspect, you can see that it has a gradient color on the Redmi Note 8 Pro, while it's kind of similar color, but we have a pattern around the camera area. So in terms of design aspect, we can say that both are almost similar. We have curved finishing towards the edges, and they're made of glass finishing. Gorilla Glass 5 support is included. We have a quad camera setup on both the devices. Now you can also see that the fingerprint scanner is integrated with a camera module on the Redmi Note 8 Pro, while we have the fingerprint scanner on the side mounted fingerprint scanner on the Poco X2. So otherwise both the devices look quite similar. We have a slightly bigger display on the Poco X2. You can see that the Poco X2 is a bit taller than the Redmi Note 8 Pro. So that's the difference. You can see that the side panel also almost similar thickness offered by these two devices. So in terms of design aspect, we would say that no major difference actually in terms of design. Poco X2 is a bit taller. That's the only difference we feel. Otherwise both are almost similar in terms of the design aspect. Now next, let's talk about the display. So we have a full HD plus resolution display on both these devices. So the Poco X2 has a slightly larger display, not by a huge margin, but still a slightly larger display, and both are protected by Gorilla Glass 5. Now one important thing about the Poco X2 is that you get 120Hz refresh rate on the Poco X2, while it's the standard 60Hz on the Redmi Note 8 Pro. Now otherwise the display quality looks quite similar. Now both are IPS LCD panels and offer good viewing angles as well. Colors looks quite similar, no major difference, but then Poco X2 definitely has the advantage that it has 120Hz refresh rate being offered. Now if you look at the display quality, you can see that 120Hz refresh rate, it's more smoother than the Redmi Note 8 Pro. So that's where the 120Hz refresh rate comes into picture. So that's the display aspect of these two devices, and the Poco X2 definitely has an advantage here. Now next, let's move on to the software. So we have MIUI 11 for Poco on the Poco X2 with Android 10, while we have the MIUI 11 on the Redmi Note 8 Pro with Android 9.0. So Android 9.0 to Android 10 upgrade is coming for the Redmi Note 8 Pro, but as of now it does not have that. So if you're a person looking for the latest version of Android, then probably Poco X2 makes sense. And also Poco X2 has the MIUI for Poco UI, which feels slightly better overall than the regular MIUI. This has the app drawer feature. So otherwise in terms of features and other options being offered, both are quite similar, no major difference here. So the major difference comes in the Android version, and that's where the Poco X2 takes the lead. Next, talking about the performance. So we have two smartphones with really good powerful hardware. We have the Snapdragon 730G, the 8nm manufacturing process, while we have the MediaTek Helio G90T, which is really suited for heavy gaming. So in terms of the overall day-to-day performance, we didn't see any major difference. Both are equally good. Both does a really good job in terms of keeping the apps optimized and app switching, multitasking. Everything was quite similar. No major issues we faced, and it's kind of smooth experience on both the phones. So in terms of performance, we don't say that one is better than the other. But if you're a person who is looking more into gaming aspect, so that's where the Helio G90T processor makes the difference, because when you play games like PUBG, you don't get the highest possible graphic quality on the 730G, while that is available on the Helio G90T. So that's where the Redmi Note 8 Pro takes the lead. If you are more into gaming and want the best gaming experience, then probably we feel the Redmi Note 8 Pro takes the lead with the G90T processor. Now next, moving on to the fingerprint scanner and face unlock. So fingerprint scanner is rear mounted on the Redmi Note 8 Pro, while it's side mounted on the Poco X2. So no major difference in terms of the experience. We found the side mounted to be really good, but a lot of people still love the rear mounted. So that's more of a personal choice. Now next, let's talk about the cameras. So we have a quad camera setup on both the phones. So we have 64 megapixel camera on both the devices. So the difference here is that we have 64 megapixel Sony's 686 sensor on the Poco X2, while we have the Samsung's GW1 sensor on the Redmi Note 8 Pro. Now we also have the ultra wide angle camera, depth sensor and macro lens on both the phones. So in that way, both are almost similar. So no major difference in terms of the camera hardware, except for the sensor, which is slightly superior on the Poco X2, because Sony's 686 is definitely superior than the Samsung's GW1 sensor. So both are 64 megapixel. Now we have the front camera. It's a dual camera on the Poco X2, so it is able to do slightly better with depth sensing when compared to the single camera on the Redmi Note 8 Pro. Now looking at the camera samples, so we'll be doing a detailed camera comparison later, looking at various aspects. So in a quick comparison, we can say that the photos taken with the Poco X2 came out slightly better in terms of the color reproduction and sharpness levels, especially with the Sony 686 sensor. It was able to retain great sharpness levels compared to the the Redmi Note 8 Pro. Also in terms of low light experience, that's where the Poco X2 had an edge over the Redmi Note 8 Pro. The Redmi Note 8 Pro is not a strong performer of low light. The Poco X2 definitely excels in that, and it's much better than the Redmi Note 8 Pro. So in terms of camera performance, our pick would be the Poco X2. Now finally, the battery life. So we have 4500 mAh capacity battery on both the phones. We have 27 watt fast charger on the Poco X2, while it's 18 watt fast charger on the Redmi Note 8 Pro. Again, here again the Poco X2 takes the lead. But if you're using in 120 Hz, you may not get as good as battery life as the Redmi Note 8 Pro. But if you use in 60 Hz, then it's quite similar in terms of the performance on both the phones. So that was a detailed comparison of these two devices. So we'll be doing a detailed camera comparison later, so stay tuned for that. Now summing up, which is the better device to buy here? So in simple terms, we can say that if you're more into cameras, if you want better pictures, then go with a Poco X2. And if you are more into gaming and if you want the best gaming experience, go with the Redmi Note 8 Pro. Other aspects remains almost similar. The Poco X2 has advantage of Android 10 and 120 Hz refresh rate, while the Redmi Note 8 Pro has advantage that it's slightly cheaper than the Poco X2, and quite a good package offered by these two devices. So that's the detailed comparison of these two devices. Hope you enjoyed watching this video. Do hit that like button and also hit the subscribe button for more videos. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.